Well, so it being the hour of 7:01, I think we can get started. I don't know where Mary Kate is. If she doesn't show up in the next 5 minutes or so, maybe we'll send her a text. Let's see. I should be sharing my screen with the agenda for tonight. The first order of business is announcements. I had an announcement that the town would like to thank Wendy Sue Harper, Robin Hobbs, and Eric Bissett for putting the flowers in front of the war memorial. In fact, the town probably should reimburse Eric for the flowers. Are there any other announcements?
We should thank Deb Gaynor for taking on the Green Up Day coordinator.
There we
position.
go. That's right. That's perfect. And also, because it'll appear in the minutes, the Green Up Day, you sign up for the Green Up Day routes on the Saturday, the next Saturday, at the kiosk in at the Park and Ride next to the school. Any other announcements? All right. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes. I think with a little bit of horsing around. Oh, this is really unfortunate. Oh, I'm not very happy with this at all, but there you go. I have the minutes. I hope that most of the select board members have had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
So moved. This is John.
Seconded, Bill.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And abstentions. So it passes unanimously. So we don't need to do a voice vote.
Or roll call vote.
A roll call vote, thank you. Our next order of business is to check warrants. I believe we have 2 warrants to look at. Jamie Schulte is coming. The first one is an AP warrant for the amount of AP as an accounts payable warrant. It's accounts payable warrant number 00518 for the amount of $53,756, $6.57.
Steve, can you say that number again for me?
I'd be happy to.
Please.
53,000.
Yep.
756
Yep.
and 57 cents.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It should be noted that the balance of this was a $40,000 payment out of the ANAC fund for the Heisinger, for conserving the Heisinger farm. That was paid to Vermont Land Trust. I believe that closing, it hasn't happened yet, but I think that closing is due in the next week or 2.
Steve, is there a date on that warrant that I should have in the minutes? I usually put a date in it.
It's the
Maybe.
same.
18th?
So the date is,
Coded into the number.
May 18th.
18th. Okay.
yeah. Is there any discussion? So as I say, normally we would just sign this at Town Hall. Given that we're doing this remotely, I would ask for a motion to approve this warrant.
So moved. This is John.
Thank you, John.
Second by Bill.
Thank you, Bill. All those in, is there any discussion? All those in favor of approving warrant number 00518 for the amount of $53,756.57, please indicate by saying aye.
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 There we go. And opposed and abstentions. Thank you. Our next warrant is a payroll warrant. So that would be PR number 00522 for the amount of $9,046.25.
Move to approve. This is John.
Thank you, John.
Second by Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And opposed and abstentions. All right, thank you very much. So I think that's, so I'm up to public comment. So, oh, review and overweight permits. Bill, you had mentioned that you had signed them on Thursday.
I signed 5 or 6. I think Sharon was going to send them to Betsy. And I talked to Sharon today, and there's 1 or 2 more at the town hall for me to sign tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. Yes.
So if you sign them tomorrow, Bill, do I put them in this minute or do I put it in next time?
It could go in the next minute.
Okay.
Okay. So our next order of business, so I'm up to public comment. We have 15 minutes of public comment if there is anybody who would like to direct comments to the select board.
I'd have a go, Bill. Anybody else wants to?
Yeah, please. What's up?
Those warrants, the payroll warrants, was that for a week?
That's a 2-week period.
2-week period. Did I see in maybe the April 27th or April 27th minutes that you had a bill for something that went past due, so you had a late charge?
It was on the copier rental, and Bill Jost didn't pay the late charges, just paid the due rental. And he explained to me that he's been fighting with the Marlin Bank who rents us the copier. He's been fighting with them since January about the late charge, that it's their fault. So the late charge was not paid, just the rental.
Yeah, Bill, and I was sort of placed in that responsibility, but I talked to Bill as well about that, Bill. And yeah, there is some contention about when the bill came in and when the cycle of payments was placed on the system.
Just seems like with a treasurer and an assistant treasurer, that really shouldn't happen. They ought to be able to plan that.
It actually happens quite frequently in society with business, Tom, because if you don't make the payment cycle based on a particular company's routine, whether it's the town or us, if you miss a day, it drops into a late charge immediately. So under those circumstances, it can be a little difficult to explain, but it is a matter of 1 day or 2.
Okay, so thinking about the Carolyn Fogg's comments from the last select board's meeting on, I think, the 11th.
Yep.
I didn't see anything in the meetings about your reaction to her comments.
Okay.
Whose reactions are you talking about, Tom?
Well, anybody from the select board. I mean, if I've done a number of positions, tax collector, constable, zone and planning, which were combined back then. I don't think anybody ever came to a meeting that like she was.
I'm missing about half of what you're saying, Tom.
I can't hear what you said, Tom.
I think I need to mute Renee. Renee, I'll make sure I unmute you in a second. Sorry, try that.
What I said was, I was delinquent tax collector, constable, zoning and planning, select board for 3 years, and I don't think anybody was ever ignored like she was. And that was really troubling to me. And then in the Addison, Steve says that if somebody comes in with a petition, you guys probably would not pay a lot of attention to a small vocal group. I find that troubling too, because, I mean, these are extraordinary times, and the new library vote was defeated, I think 3 times, Steve? I keep saying that, nobody corrects me.
No, that's correct. It was, there's been 3 bond votes. This was the 4th bond vote.
And I believe that, well, I mean, I guess I'm not sure. I don't know how large a group sponsored the first attempt. But since then, hasn't it just been the select board? Obviously, with some popular support, but it's the select board, and that's a pretty small group. That's 5. So, I, as a 41-year, I think, 41-year resident, I found that very disturbing. And I think these Zoom meetings are good because you get to see who's in those positions, sitting and making these comments or non-comments. So that said, and not seeing any, maybe I'll get a reaction. The other thing is I was looking for some stuff here tonight on the town website. I saw the town conflict of interest.
Yes.
And, last meeting, Steve, you said you were one of the 2 largest contributors to the library committee. And
I donated to the library fund. Yes.
Fund. Okay. So, I'm just wondering how impartial. John, a while ago, a couple weeks ago on Front Porch Forum, I didn't get the discussion, but he said that Front Porch Forum might not be the most appropriate place to discuss something like I took at the library, and said that people should the select board. And I just wonder how much effect an email would have if you're going to totally ignore the person who comes in and talks directly.
Okay. Is there
And
a
I was
question?
pretty disappointed in a few of the people on that board that I've known for a while.
Okay.
Happened.
May I interject?
Please, we're in public comments. You're good
Tom,
to
are
go.
you done? Are you all set, Tom?
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see if there's any comment.
To that point, when John turned around and said, public forums aren't the place. Okay, fine. 7 days ago, I'm reading my email right now. I directly emailed the select board regarding the town hall project, asking a specific question. And if we stopped spending right now and the associated spending, do you know how much each taxpayer would have to pay this year to cover what had already been spent or committed to? I understand the overall number, but I'm wondering what the breakdown is, and I have had no reply to that at all.
Yeah, and Carolyn, I'll have to take that. To be honest, I had been waiting for some information from Naylor and Breen, who was going to give me construction cash flow analysis, and we were going to talk about that. But let me see if I can't. Let me see what I can do here. Gotta be smarter than the thing to do it. So, oh my goodness. Here's how much money we've spent to date on the project. That I can sort of lay my hands on. In 2019, we spent $20,000 on the architectural fees. And then going forward, we've been spending on architectural fees. Down here is our cash flow per month. You know, how much have we spent in a given month? We are at the end of May. We will be starting in June. Bellwether architectural fees, Naylor and Breen, we signed a contract with them for $4,500 worth of what's called pre-construction fees. The actual construction fees will, depending on when we actually break ground. Currently, we're talking about July 15th to August 1st, somewhere in that neighborhood. Division of Fire Safety, we have an application in with the Division of Fire Safety to permit the building. That's a $13,000 permit fee. Night Consulting, we haven't finally, we signed a contract with them. We haven't got the bill. Those are the people who just came and drilled a bunch of test borings for us. That was there, I think May 13th, May 14th is when they did that work. We've had some public water source permitting. We spent about $1,000, let's call it. And then we've signed a contract for design work from the for the HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. I call it pre-construction. That number is some $18,000. And then some legal fees related to the bond. Legal fees related to the water. We haven't gotten a bill from Kevin Brennan yet, so I don't really know what those fees are. So the real answer, Carolyn, to your question is there's two things, and I do apologize, and it has been on my list, and I've been banging on Tanner to give me some construction numbers because I want to put the construction numbers in there as well. We pay $25,000 is a penny on the tax rate. So that's one way to think of it. We have these two numbers, the 20,000 and the 10,000, are monies that we spent prior to the bond vote that we hope to sort of wrap into the bond vote. We do have a municipal building fund funded to $100,000. So in some senses, you wouldn't have totally exhausted the municipal building fund and paid for the what was budgeted in 2009 and February of 2020 until the end of July at that 137 number. So that is, now it depends on what you think. I mean, the question is, there's this, we have gotten a few comments regarding the idea of a revote, or I would like to frame that. I would frame that as an overturning of an election, because that's what it is. You're interested in disenfranchising the people who voted for the project. The state law says you can reconsider a vote until 30 days you know what? I need to make sure that, there we go. Until 30 days after the vote. After 30 days, the vote is set. We waited 30 days until after town meeting day before we went to our bond attorney and said, please give us an opinion whether or not we have correctly done the process and that we can apply for a bond vote.
Well, what I was able to find out from preliminary from the Secretary of State's office is if, and I don't think that was what Carolyn was looking for. I think she was looking, sounded to me like she was looking for a delay. But from what I was able to find out, if the situation changes, then you can reconsider things after the 30 days. And a pandemic could be considered a change in the situation.
So
regardless,
correct. After 30 days, the select board could, if they wanted to, call for a reconsideration or a revote or overturn the previous vote. I have not heard. I asked the select board prior to this meeting, is putting in the agenda. If they wanted that on the agenda, they said no. So I would take that as that they have no interest, nor do I, on addressing that issue. There's no way that I personally, for instance.
well, that's why I thought the town conflict of interest.
I have no conflict of interest because I have no financial, whether the thing goes through or not, I'm still out the money that I contributed.
Have you read the conflict of interest?
It is not.
Have you read it lately?
I wrote it.
Okay. Well, you ought to reread
It
it.
was the very first thing I did when I got on the select board in 2008, is write
Okay.
that conflict of interest
Great.
policy. Don't
Great.
tell me what it says. I know what it says.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you know what it is. It depends on how you interpret it. But I don't know that you five can be not conflicted. That's up to you.
Thank you.
On
May
what
I,
grounds,
may I,
Tom?
this is, oop.
Yes, Renee?
Yeah, so a couple of points.
Sure.
First of all, as far as overturning the vote, I don't necessarily know that that's what people are looking for. Carolyn's asked for a delay. It seems to me that John McNerney has written in the past about delaying things could actually make it more expensive. I think we should look at, if our governor is looking at, and this is not to disenfranchise the people who voted for the building. I mean, I could turn that around to all of you as well, and I agree. I think there could be some conflict of interest on certain people's parts, that the person, well, that the people that are meeting in the building have a vested interest in having this place. And that, Stephen, that you're the chairperson of the select board, you are also the chairperson of the municipal building committee meeting. As far as disenfranchising the people who voted for the building, I guess I could argue too that those of us that wanted a more modest building could feel disenfranchised, which I do, for you putting out a bond that's $1.7 million. I mean, I can't even believe that it passed. So let's not, throw the disenfranchising in people's faces. I've posted publicly in Front Porch Forum that we could also look at reducing. So I don't know that the vote has to be for overturning. I mean, there's already been money invested. I don't think it needs to be for overturning, but maybe we can look at, before you invest even more money, asking people if they would like a 10% or a 20% reduction on the bond. There is a pandemic. It is affecting people financially. And the fact that the select board isn't even interested in hearing from those people, I think, is despicable.
Thank you.
Well, Steve, I'll just add in a couple more comments. One, you're certain that the situation is good. 5 members of the select board think you should go straight ahead. But I can't imagine that there could be a problem on your minds of sending something to the registered voters of the town of Moncton asking if anybody thought they would like to see this project delayed. You certainly shouldn't, I can't see how you could object to that. The other thing is, you talk about, John did say that it might be more expensive, or it would be more expensive to stop than it would be to go ahead. I don't believe it would be more expensive than what you spent on the first 3 votes in planning. You know how much you spent on the first 3 votes? On architects and stuff?
Well, tell us, Tom, what is it?
I don't know. I don't have any idea.
Well, then why did you ask the question?
Well, because I'm interested to know. And you guys, well, you weren't on there then, I don't think, but Steve's been there through the whole.
No,
John has.
So to the best of my knowledge, the town spent essentially 0 for the first 3 votes. The first 3 votes were design build votes. This was the first time that we engaged in.
And there was no cost to that, to get the design?
What?
There was no cost to that?
No, design build firms, what you do is you put together what you think you need for a building and what you think you can pay more or less, and they go out and design something and they compete. All of the design build firms compete, and they come in and give you conceptual drawings.
Well, that's good. That's great. Good job on that.
So the cost was basically the cost of running an ad in the Addison Independent announcing, you know, that, hey, this is coming up for a vote. We're running that ad anyway because we always warn anything coming up at town meeting.
Well, votes used to cost $400 or $500 to hold a vote.
Except that we did it at a town
maybe
meeting.
it's $1,000, $2,000. Send everybody a ballot. Let them react. Some people will, some people won't. But you're pretty confident what the result will be. So, deal. Okay, I'm done with that.
Great. Me too. Okay, that's the end of the public comment. Our next.
May I say, wait a second. May I say one more thing? This is Renee.
Please, Renee.
Yeah, no, I really think that by the select board not even taking an interest in this and what the people think, if you remember, Stephen, I came to the first building committee meeting, and I've also written on Front Porch Forum that there was 57% voted yes and 42% voted no. We do have a pandemic. The fact that you guys won't even put this on the agenda to discuss when people are financially hurting, I don't know what to think of that. Actually, I do know what I think of that. I already used the word. I would hope that you would reconsider. You know, do you really care that much about a building? What's the harm in maybe cutting it down by 10, 20%? Or asking the people if they want to do that. What's the harm in asking that question before the public when the vote was really kind of close? And there's financial situations that would make it, reasonable to ask that question again, not to overturn the vote, but to adjust the budget a little bit, help people out a little bit. Where's the compassion? Where's the compassion for people who are suffering financially from this?
So, Renee, thank you. We do have compassion. If you look further down on the agenda, we're going to be talking about changing, our delinquent tax policy. There would at least be a partial answer to that. I hope at our next meeting to bring in the Ben Howardell of the Highway Department and try and find ways to decrease our property taxes for this year.
You're not going to encourage him to do less, are you?
We did 3 public meetings. We worked with the town. We came up with what they wanted. Everybody was shown the budget. We voted on it. It was voted in the affirmative. We have now progressed. We're finished with the design documents. We're well into the construction documents. We've bid out both the electrical, the HVAC, the plumbing, the site work. I mean, we are very close to wrapping this project up and starting construction. There is no, we are wiggle room, and if you stick around, I will have to send you by email some of our, what we call statement of values, and the ways that we've attempted to make sure that this stays within budget, and changes that we've made to do that. Anyway, and with that, I really would like, it's 7:32. I'm going to move on to new business. That's the insurance claim. A cracked windshield. I haven't made this. Let me see if I can just bring this up. We get these claims from time to time. Vermont League of Cities and Towns, Passive is our insurance carrier. They recommended that we pay for the damage that was. It was basically stone came off one of the town trucks and chipped Ben Tybald's windshield, as I understand it. But I believe our current policy is that we don't allow insurance claims to be paid unless the select board approves. Is there any discussion on this?
The recommendation of the insurance company, as I read that letter, is that we're at fault because the load was not tarped.
That's how I read it as well.
Yeah, I don't see a whole lot to discuss. It's other than the fact that we should talk to whoever's driving around without the tarp. I would move to approve the claim.
Second by Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And abstentions? All right. I would, John, I think you had an appointment to the Forest Committee, the Town Forest Committee, that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, we had, the Town Forest Committee did meet. We had a person write and express interest. We gotta make sure I get his name, David Sterrett. The Town Forest Committee had not had a chance to meet with him, and we did meet via Zoom conference this past Thursday and had a nice discussion with him. He's got a background in land use law, has been living in Moncton and has been practicing in that area of specialty for, I think he said 15 years. And after that meeting, the existing members of the Town Forest Committee voted unanimously to recommend his appointment to the committee.
Good. So do you want to nominate him to the committee?
Okay, so I would nominate David Sterrett to the Town Forest Committee.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor of appointing David Sterrett to the Town Forest Committee, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And abstentions?
John, is there a term limit or a term?
There isn't. It's just since we don't actually have a town forest, it's just a discussion thing. And
Okay.
And as we get into talking about something actually happening, we'll, we designed something around terms for an ongoing committee.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I guess the only other appointment, which I assume we're not interested in, we finally did reach out and get a letter back from our ACO appointee, who said that she felt that the pay scale for the ACO should be $450 a month, given that she was on for 24/7. That's a significant amount, increase in the amount that we currently do pay that we have budgeted for the animal control officer. is there any interest in appointing her at that level?
Yeah, I don't know what our options are because we basically continue without one. It's a little surprising to me because she accepted, when we appointed her in December, she accepted the terms and rates and indicated that she thought that was fine. She also does not need to be on call 24/7. None of our other employees are on call 24/7. I don't know why that would be. But
It sounded like it was a miscommunication that we had told her what our fee rate was, and she heard something different.
well, she also claimed that she had not heard, was never given training, and Melanie Pizer said she has made several attempts to contact her and hand over that in the weeks after she was appointed, never got a response. Bill Jost made several attempts to have her come in and fill out the paperwork so she could start being paid. She never responded to those either.
Yeah. So I don't need to belabor the point. It just sounds like we should again advertise for an animal control officer.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate and obviously a difficult position to fill. Let's see. Hello. There we go. We at our last the next order of business is the easements between the town of Moncton and the Moncton Ridge Association. This has to do with the church well. We had there was a question on the granting of the easement to the town, and it was wrapped around this question of a replacement well. And Kevin Brennan, who's the attorney, produced different language that he felt didn't automatically cause the town to give an easement back. And so it reads, in the event a replacement well is not able to be located on the grantor's land, that's the church, grantee by acceptance of this deed acknowledges and agrees that grantee shall undertake the necessary action pursuant to 24 VSA 1061 in order to grant an easement to a replacement shared well to be located on the grantee's lands. So that's the language that Kevin Brennan put in.
So,
Yes.
Steve, do we still have, I mean, I realize this doesn't actually grant an easement. It just says we will grant an easement if the well fails, which, or this is if the septic fails or the well
This
fails?
is if the well fails.
Okay. So, I mean, if it fails, we're going to need a well. We'd need a well for the building anyway. So I guess not a lot of controversy there. And my understanding at this point is there's no cost or no cash changing hands. The only cost is just the cost of drawing up the legal document.
Right. And that's being borne by the town. But that's right. And these are the legal documents. He would have to take the draft off of it and produce a final version, have it signed by Terry Fitzgerald, and then we have to do the obverse on our side with the easement deed that we're granting to the church. But we have to go through a public hearing process to make that happen.
So the procedure here is you're looking for a motion to put into process the public hearings to accept this. Is that correct?
So I don't think I need for the easement deed for us. Yes, I need something, right, that just an agreement by the board that we should start the process towards going through the public process to sign an easement, granting an easement to town lands. I don't think we really need anything off of the easement deed for the church unless, I put it before the select board so we have a chance to look at it. And if there's no issues, then I would just direct the council, Kevin Brennan, to go ahead and finalize it.
Okay, so we don't need to hold separate hearings on any of this.
Not on the one, this one. This is the one going that where the church is giving us an easement.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, speaking of lawyers,
Hi.
maybe I'll wait. Hi, Mary Kate.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I
It's all right.
hurt my finger.
Oh, yes, you did. That's going to make typing kind of a pain in the.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, but anyway. You're on the easement deed?
We are. I sent you a copy, but I can bring it up on the screen here. The language that Kevin replaced is he basically agreed in the event a replacement well is not able to be located on the grantor's land, the church's land, the grantee, by acceptance of this deed, acknowledges and agrees that the grantee shall undertake the necessary action pursuant to 24 VSA 1061 in order to grant an easement to a replacement shared well to be located on the grantee's land. So it just basically, it's a promise.
Yeah, so if it can't be located on the church's land, the town will undertake actions to grant them a placement,
Yep.
a replacement well. Yeah, I think that works.
Okay. So I was just going to go back to Kevin and say, yep, the select board's okay with this, and you can go ahead and make a finalized copy.
Sounds good.
All right. And then we didn't make any changes to the easement deed from the town to the church, but I guess I would like to see in the minutes that we agreed to start the process, the public process regarding deeding of easements on to town property. Talk, Mike.
So is this for both the well and the septic, or is this that you're talking about now, Steve?
So the easement that we're giving to them is for a septic easement, right? An easement and right of way to install a replacement wastewater disposal system.
And so do you need a motion to approve
Sure.
initiating the process for granting an easement for the septic?
I would certainly take that. That would be great. And then it's at least in the minutes. And
Okay.
I'll really want one when we have to sign it, but we have to go through the process before we sign it.
Yeah. So I move that we initiate the process for the granting of an easement to the church for replacement septic on town property.
Yeah. And is there a second?
Second by Bill.
There you go. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of those. I'm going to get rid of that. And
Just to be clear, so we know we don't need a roll call, do you want to ask for abstentions or
I'm
nays?
sorry, abstentions, or are there any opposed or abstentions? Thank you, John. Our next order of business is the 2020 contract for Homeward Bound. I apologize to the select board that I didn't scan this for you guys, but it's exactly the same as we have looked at every year. we get two options. Option number one is to pay $450 with the return contract plus $75 per stray dog after the first 3 stray dogs. In general, we've always gone with option one. We very rarely have stray dogs that we pick up and take to homeward bound. Without an animal control officer, it's even less likely. And option two is to just pay a flat rate of $600, and there's no charge per stray dog or limit. As you know, we've talked before. Homeward Bound does not, just impound dogs for us. They'll bring in stray dogs, but if we have we want to impound a dog, a dangerous dog in town, they are not up for that. So I guess, unless you guys, I can scan this and put it on the next select board's meeting, but we've done this exact contract for the last 3 or 4 years. I would entertain a motion to accept a 2020 contract for animal holding facility at Homeward Bound, option number one, for $450.
So moved. Bill?
Thank you, Bill.
I'll second that, Mary Kate.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 And opposed? And abstentions?
Yeah, this is Mary Kate. I was on mute, just clarifying, I vote.
Thank you. Okay, so the next item of business is reviewing the delinquent tax policy for temporary changes. Those who are not, we can get into this in a couple of different ways. Let me start by, here is, this is just our current delinquent policy, delinquent taxes. We still have some $6,000. Can you guys see this on your screens?
Yes.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So we currently still have some folks in arrears, $6,700 from 2017. In 2018, we're still carrying about $20,000 of delinquent taxes. And then 2019, as of now, basically, $58,000 worth of delinquent taxes. One of the things that Bill Jost, the treasurer, mentioned to me, he said he felt that a lot of the people who had been struggling actually have had a chance to catch up, and that it's only 1 or 2 larger delinquent taxes that are outstanding. That's what he said. So I'll start with that. That's a piece. And then our current delinquent tax policy, our payment is we charge, and it's our part of 5, item number 5 in our policy. Late payments paid in full within 15 days of the due date are subject to a 1% interest charge. Payments received more than 15 days late are subject to a penalty of 8%. And interest rate charges of 1% per month for the next 3 months and 1.5% per month thereafter. So given both the, I've always felt that the 8% was usurious, overly. It's really tough. The people who are late on their property taxes in general are the people least able to pay their property taxes. And the penalty of 8%, we've had that since before I was on the select board. So, I'm interested to hear what the board has to say. What I would put forward as at least for this year, is to waive that penalty of 8%, and perhaps delay by some 2 or 3 months the charging of the interest rate per month of 1% or 1.5% after 3 months. But I'm up for grabs on this one. I hear. Anyway, this is one way. This is the first way I would think to make the property tax burden easier.
So this is Mary Kate.
Mary Kate.
Those penalties and interest rates are all what the statute provides, and I'm not aware, from my time doing real estate, that's what every town has, as far as I know. I'm not aware of towns that don't just follow the statute. That said, I know we may have, with COVID-19, there may be other issues, but I'm wondering whether it might make more sense to sort of deal with it through the Board of Civil Authority, rather than necessarily changing this, although I'm certainly open to changing it for this year in view of COVID. But I think part of behind the statute, part of the, it is a large penalty, but part of it is so that towns get paid on time, because it's a big incentive to pay your taxes on time.
Oh, yeah, yes, it is. But you'd be surprised at how many people don't.
I think one of the other things behind the state statute is there was an attempt to make it more expensive than borrowing money some other way, because you didn't want the town to become a bank and to become sort of the lender of first resort. You want it to be the lender of last resort to somebody. So I'm not arguing against your proposal, Steve. There was some logic to it. And I can remember when interest rates were 20%, and this would have been considered a very rational approach. Hopefully we're not headed for that again, but I can understand the logic of where they came up with a hefty thing. And I believe when I first moved here, the penalty of 8% kicked in when you were 1 day late. Bill's nodding his head yes. Yeah, because I actually paid that the first year I moved here. Wow. When I screwed up and didn't pay my property taxes.
Oh. I'll tell you the truth. I really support Stephen's suggestions here. Regardless of state statutes and everything, we have a unusual circumstance here, and I don't think that, given everything that's going on, that we can ignore the fact that there are going to be people that are going to have difficulties here. And that is why they delayed the federal tax payments, the state tax payments to July 15th. Because if you hadn't, and I paid my taxes on time, but I know a lot of people have not. And if you looked at the penalty for not paying your taxes on time to the federal and state level, I think that if you look at that and our community looks at us and says, wow, the feds did it, the state's doing it, why are we not thinking about being just creating that humanitarian level of discussion on the tax rate. And the Board of Civil Authority, I don't know this, Mary Kate. I was hoping you could help me understand that as to how that works, because if there's some sort of ability for them to look at a particular person's taxes and their income sensitivity to determine whether they have a rational reason, I'm all for that to some degree, as long as that doesn't put them in. A lot of people don't have the education to go through all those legal processes in our community. And those are the ones who are going to suffer the most. And I think that we have to recognize that there is going to be a hardship. And I looked at line item number 5 here well before the meeting started, and I have a problem with it for our community.
I have a question if Mary Kate can answer it. We know the state and Fed income tax return filing dates have been extended. Did they change the filing date for the homestead form?
I don't know the answer to
'Cause
that
that means
question.
we're all going to be messed up in August.
They did, Bill. I checked that.
Yeah.
They did extend anything that was due April 15th has been extended to July 15th. At least
So-
that's what my tax guy told me.
And it takes the state 60 to 90 days to determine the amount that will be sent to a town on behalf of a resident. And that's practically going to put us at our tax due date. So it looks like there's going to be more problems than just this.
So, Mary Kate, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that our item number 5 is the maximum that we're allowed to charge. The 8%, I'm sure, is the max. But I didn't think there was a minimum. So, and I don't know that we need to come to an answer tonight. And it may be that we need to go and research statutes a little bit to see what we can and cannot do here.
My recollection is that, well, I know that I don't know the details, but the state did just pass something allowing
344.
more leeway to towns in how and I think it had to do with these late fees, penalties. I don't know if that affected it, but prior to that legislation, there were pretty strict limits on what the BCA could even consider. I don't think you could waive
Yeah,
late fees, could you?
I do know the statute does allow towns to consider, take into consideration actions with respect to delinquent taxes. I don't know what the exact language is, but I think it's something that as we get closer to when taxes are due, we're going to want to consider as we have more economic information. I do think that there are a lot of people who, if they have mortgages, they're actually escrowing for taxes. So if they don't pay their mortgage, now they're in default on that. So, there's probably at least half the people are escrowing, but maybe we can get that information from Bill. I think we talked about that the last select board meeting a little bit. But yeah, I think it's something we should look at, but I don't think we need to look at it now. And I'd like to get more information about kind of what the economics are looking at by the September or so.
Okay.
Yeah. I do agree it's something we should consider. I did read that, I forget if it was Connecticut or Massachusetts. I'm not sure if it was a state or some towns. I have relatives in both areas, but one of the things they did was they did waive some late fees and things, but if you wanted them waived, you had to come in before the due date and file for and basically fill out a form or something. And their reasoning for that was that it allowed the treasurer to do planning, cash flow planning and things, rather than just having things suddenly not show up.
Right, because we are going to have to do some planning because if we, waive penalties, we waive interest, then people might put it off. It would be nice to have some idea of what impact that might have on people paying taxes and what we might need to do in terms of having funds.
Yeah. And another point is we could consider, rather than waiving interest entirely, waive it down to the town's cost of borrowing.
Yeah.
I don't know what our tax anticipation notes run, but my impression is they're generally pretty low. And so that way you're not, if you do that, at least you're not asking people who are paying to subsidize those who aren't.
Right.
But I definitely agree this is something we should take up in more detail as we get closer and see what condition things are in.
Okay, I'll take that. So it sounds like we would want to consider this in the September, October timeframe.
Well, I think, yeah, I think John's point though is a good one that I hadn't considered, in terms of if we are going to take action, getting a heads up. So we might want to keep it on the agenda to kind of think about the sort of planning we might need to do related to this.
Okay. So, all right, so we'll push it to our next meeting. We'll at least know some of it. We'll know the statute piece.
Yeah. And maybe VLCT will have some recommendations or sample language or something out by then that we could consider.
Okay. All right, thank you. No, go away. Go away. You have to be smarter than the thing to use it. So, okay. I guess I would like, at this point, our next piece of business is ANAC request regarding funds, I think, for small dairy farms in Moncton. I don't know who would like to speak. I see Laura Farrell. Are you up?
Yeah.
I can't quite hear you. Can you turn your volume? Let me see.
Hi, can you hear me better now?
Not really.
Let's try this.
You have a volume control on your headset thing there?
Yeah, is this better?
Yes.
Lightly, yeah.
When are we getting to good?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah,
Okay.
when you hold it up to your mouth.
That's hearable.
Okay. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so I'm going to read more of a statement so I don't forget everything I wanted to say or that ANAC wanted to say in. The recommendation that we made was brought before the select board to raise awareness of the plight that's facing Moncton's 2 remaining dairy farms at a time when produce farmers are coming into farmers market season, so have some markets, and ACORN, the Addison County Localization Network, is helping to find local alternative markets for them on top of that. We couldn't find any comparable efforts for dairy farmers. And this is at a time when dairy farmers have recently, I believe this month, been requested to make a 15% cutback in output due to a decline in school and institutional markets. This is on top of an already low price being paid for milk, which is $7 less per hundredweight than last year. There continues to be a great deal of uncertainty in the timing and even the extent of state and federal COVID-19 assistance for dairy farmers, as well as the what the farmers have to do to meet the terms of any assistance that's offered. Though, thank you, John, I got your email right when I logged on to the meeting. So it looks like the state is moving forward this week, and so that's hopeful. Where was I? So ANAC looked into other potential avenues of assistance, and it doesn't look like they would pay out until later in the summer, like July, August, September, maybe even into October. And the calculation has a 50-cow dairy farm losing $30,000 this year. So $10,000 could make a big difference right now, this is a season where there's a large cash outlay to keep operations running and move them forward into the next seasons. And folks might be especially pinched. And we wanted to clarify that the recommendation is not in response to a request for funding from any residents, but a response to the preponderance of evidence that indicates the situation dairy farmers are facing at this time. I talked to both of the families and they were really grateful that they were even being thought of at this time. I think this are the type of people who just put their head down and do their work and try to make it work. But I don't think the circumstances today are really hospitable to them. We did receive an inquiry as to whether ANAC was aware of any assistance for dairy farmers, what types of other funding would be available. And that led to the fact-finding mission. We're compiling a list of resources which will be distributed to the local farmers in the next few days. Our concern continues to be the timeliness of the options that are available, and that conventional dairy has been so especially hard hit. The two businesses that are doing conventional dairy are two of the longest running businesses in town. So the discussion is important to raise the circumstances facing the dairy farms. If the ANAC fund is not the appropriate avenue to address this, we feel it's important to raise awareness before the town, and would love to hear any other ideas on how we might help. If you all think the ANAC fund might be a prospect for a special one-time exception to our usual process, then we'd be happy to hear about that too. But I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Just a quick clarification. As I understand it, the request was for two $10,000 payments.
That's right, and as like a one-time emergency funding from the ANAC fund, which has sufficient funds in it. We don't want to open the funding up for anything except what it's been doing, except this is a pretty exceptional time, and the dairy farmers are being harder hit than most folks.
Nice. So I guess I would open it up to questions from the board.
Maybe I don't want to go there and I don't want to get into specifics, but is it equitable if one farm milks 300 cows and one milks 50, should they be getting the same amount? Because their income loss is very different.
Good question. We felt that this was an amount that the fund could sustain. The farms that we have left in Moncton are small and medium size, like 40 to, I don't remember what the upper limit of that would be, what the lanes might be milking at this time. But they're at a size where $10,000 could make a difference. A larger farm that's milking closer to that upper limit, probably wouldn't make that much of a difference, or it might be appropriate to request more funding for them. But we don't want to open up the ANAC fund for permanent aid whenever it's needed. It's just that this is an especially dire time, and there's a need to fill this gap until other funding comes down this season. They need to lay out some capital to keep things going.
It sounds like ANAC identified these two farms. Are there other farms in Moncton, that other dairy farms, and
or any other farms, period, regardless of dairy, any farming that has been subjected to the same type of impacts?
Not the same type of impact. There are 3 dairy farms in Moncton. The produce farms have a different set of circumstances in that they have markets and that they are in a little bit better shape going into this crisis. I forgot the first part of your question, sorry.
So you said there's 3 farms, but yeah, then identified, I think 2 on.
Oh, right. The third farm is owned by Matt Baldwin, who bought the Codas farm. And he does not live in town, and he operates multiple farms. So he's not based in Moncton, and his operations aren't solely in Moncton. So it seemed appropriate to.
Plus he just got helped by ANAC.
With the conservation of the Coda farm.
Yes.
Yeah.
John? Oh, sorry.
Were you going to say something, John?
Well, I agree that there's a severe need. It's my concern. I expressed this to Laura earlier today, but my concern is that it doesn't seem to me to really completely align with Annex Charter. And I'm not sure, how, if we decide to go ahead with something like this, what's it take to change that charter, and is that something that we want to do? I agree that if we do it, it ought to be on a one-time basis. But I don't remember the wording, but everything we've spent so far has been towards, there's been something in exchange. It hasn't just been an outright grant. It's been towards the purchase of a conservation easement, or something durable, something of lasting.
Yeah, and after we spoke, John, oh, sorry, did you? Okay. After we spoke, I did go back and look at the official ANAC mission statement and the application process. And the mission statement reads that ANAC is dedicated to protecting the farmland, woodland, natural and recreational areas, and other open spaces that help give Moncton its distinctive rural character and quality of life. There's criteria for applying for funding, but what's not addressed in this is a situation like this. It doesn't say anywhere that I could find that it's not possible, but we don't want to open the fund up for, I won't use the word raiding, but for other uses. But this feels like a time when the dairy farmers could use a bridge fund to get them to the next season when further funding could be available. It's a time when they're laying out a great deal to keep the operation going into a year.
It's not mentioned in the mission, but the next page of that, I think it's the top of the application form, that the town seeks the acquisition and perpetual protection of critical agricultural and natural resources within the town of Moncton. Then it goes on to list all the criteria that would make you eligible for funding. So I mean, I guess my concern is we've been operating under these assumptions, or under this document, basically since this was founded, and that's the understanding under which funds have continued to be approved by the town.
Right, and this came up at our meeting too, so we thought we would bring it before you and recognize the dire straits the farms are in, and that to see if there was some avenue to address this through the town. And if not through the town, if there are any ideas on how we could get them some help.
I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but as my predecessor would say, precedent. There's like 3 woodworking shops in town, and suppose all the wood got afflicted by some horrible bug and they had nothing to make their products with. I'm just, I'm not opposed to it. It's just, it's hard.
Right, this is a COVID, yeah, and we understand that point. It came up.
Yeah, I think my concern is pretty close to what John was discussing. Just, the voters vote for funds for ANAC, and then also for other funds that we have. And so I think I would want a legal opinion as to whether or not we could spend ANAC or any other funds for this purpose. And then I also really want to make sure that we have some sort of criteria that isn't favoring one farmer over another. And that kind of gets into what Bill was saying. It's really tough to, you know, for these other programs, you have, ANAC has criteria and people apply and they fit the criteria or they don't. And we're sort of making it up. But this is a unprecedented time, and people are, you know, I think it does to some extent fit with ANAC's mission of preserving farms. So it's tough because you know, the voters vote for where they want to spend money, and that's what they approve, and we can't spend it on something else. And so that's sort of the you know, one of the issues.
Right. We were thinking that by bringing it before the select board and making this recommendation, that there would also be a warning if it was decided to go ahead with this, that would invite the town to comment. And I don't know if the logistics of that are possible, at the scale that it might be necessary to change the procedure for this one thing, or if it's a good idea. So, you know, we're bouncing it off of you and asking you to consider it, but it's
yeah, I mean, certainly putting on something on the warning for when we vote, but the problem is these farmers need the money now, right? But
yeah. That's why, you know, we rushed to get this to you.
Yeah. So there's I guess there's one other concern I have is that, you know, and I guess it relates to my first one, that, you know, in the past it's been any funds expended have been in exchange for something, a conservation easement. And this one is basically taking taxpayer money and redistributing it, not in exchange for something. So I had two thoughts. One is, and one's would be complicated to work out, but, you know, is it possible to purchase a right of first refusal with ANAC funds? And my other comment is we could take the town out of it altogether. I don't know if these landowners are open to it, but there was something like $25,000 raised in a GoFundMe campaign for a family in Starksboro whose house burnt down during this COVID thing. I'm reasonably certain I could find somebody willing to match up to $5,000 in a GoFundMe type campaign or something. You know, and that takes away the question of, is it fair from the town or is it fair from anybody? You know, anybody can launch one if they think they've got a cause that's going to attract contributions.
Yes, it's true. There isn't quite the same outcome with the funds. The one thing it would do is boost the local economy. The pay would go to local folks, and we could put a stipulation in there that it goes towards buying goods locally from local distributors, hiring local contractors. That's one upside to doing it, but we understand your point, and any alternative ways to get at this are welcome. GoFundMe would be great if the families are up for it, and I'm happy to talk to them.
I mean, it almost seems like, you know, kind of when the, you know, the state, the CARE Act and the state putting together a plan to, you know, help finance the economy, and but, you know, they're looking across all sorts of businesses, and you know, I think, you know, unless it fits within what ANAC can do, for us as a select board to kind of put together a mini economic recovery act that addresses one segment of our community, you know, that I don't think we can kind of choose one, but if it already fits within the ANAC mission and those funds can be used, then I think it, you know, I'm supportive of trying to help these farmers for sure. So, but I don't think we can just, without having a bigger, you know, the select board as a whole, we don't have funds to appropriate for an economic recovery package, and just then also trying to pick, you know, who in town is really suffering and how do we, you know, use funds. I would like to see maybe whether it is something ANAC can do under its charter, or some form of it that could be done.
I'm happy to send you our official documents if that would help.
I actually, I mean, I have the blah, 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 blah. I have the ANAC application form we can bring up here, I think. Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yes.
Gotta be smarter than the person to run it. Yeah, this is your criteria for use of Moncton's agricultural and natural areas fund.
Right, and on the there is on the first page of that document, I think it starts off with the mission.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and you know, that the original article that charted you guys was one that said it talked about the 2%, the 2 cents on the tax rate, and the actual way it reads, and I know you've read it any number of times, that shall the voters of the town of Moncton authorize the select board to appoint a committee to receive and review out applications for the allocations of funds accrued from the continuing, you know, so I don't know. I don't know. I have trouble. And I think I've expressed that to you guys in emails.
Yeah, you have, and we understand that it's the long-term view, and that's important because we don't want to compromise the fund. It's just we've seen this need.
Yeah. I think in addition to what you just read, it might have been the following year, once the criteria were established. I think weren't they brought up at town meeting and approved?
I believe so. There's also a revised edition as of February 2019.
I don't believe that the criteria was ever approved at town meeting.
No.
I think as we developed the criteria in the application, we certainly shared them with the select board.
Yep, and they were certainly approved by the select board.
Yes, correct.
So, I mean, the part I struggle with the most is we go before the voters. I mean, really, what's the select board? We're mostly just the, you know, we try and make sure the money's spent in a way consistent with what the voters voted on at town meeting. So we have always, you know, I have trouble spending money in a way that is different than how we have represented it to the voters over the past now 12 years since we started the ANAC fund. I think ANAC has done great work. I think that surrounding communities, when they start thinking about, well, how can we conserve some of our working landscape, are kind of amazed at, I think, the generosity of the citizens of Moncton in terms of funding the ANAC fund.
Yeah, this sorry.
No, go ahead.
This fund is way at the head of its class. There's a spreadsheet circulated by the Association of Vermont Conservation Commissions that shows how much different towns spend on conservation funding, and Moncton blows almost everyone else out of the water, and it's a really small town with not the resources that some other places have. It's we are looking to you for guidance on what to do here, because it's a real conundrum, but there's a real need for something.
Yeah. As I say, I think I'd have trouble spending ANAC funds for this purpose, but that's me.
No, that's fair. We're asking your opinion.
Yeah.
You're the select board, so
Yeah.
that's why we brought it to you. So,
How would the board like to proceed? Do we have do you guys have suggestions? Laura, do you want what do you want from this point? Do you want us to take a formal vote? Do you just want us to discuss it at our next meeting? I'm not quite sure what you would
well,
prefer.
it's kind of in your hands at this point, and I understand that if you wanted to take some time and explore it, or I don't know, the need is immediate, but it's not something that you can just say yes or no to. There's a lot of nuance in this, obviously, and it's kind of in your all's hands. If you want to vote on it now, that's fine. If you want to take a little time to delve into it or think about it, that's totally acceptable.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. So what's the board want to do? It sounds, I'm not hearing a motion. If I don't get a motion, then what I would do is put it for consideration at our next select board meeting.
I think that's a good idea. I'm certainly not comfortable moving to approve fund expenditures at this point without having explored, is the procedure proper, and if we were to do it, it's, do we need to, when we had the salt shed fund, we were diverted, when we didn't spend those, we had to jump through a bunch of hoops to release funds for something other than our original intended purpose. I don't know if that applies here, but I'm a little leery without some criteria other than you're a dairy farm. I'm a little leery just to say, let's jump in and do it. I am very willing to talk to a potential donor to a GoFundMe if the families are interested in that, and I'm pretty sure I know what the answer will be, because it's somebody who's done similar amounts for other five-town community projects.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Laura, Sam, I was going to push on to the next agenda item. Are we done here? All right. Thank you.
Thank you all for your time.
You bet. No, thank you.
Laura.
Thank you for the work, right, and the work that you've done over the years. I looked back at the first ANAC committee and discovered that it was Laura Farrell and John McNerney and Sam Burr were all on it. And I was like, oh, you guys have been working on this for a while.
Yeah, we've gotten incredible things done, and the town deserves a lot of thanks too. It's really incredible given the size of our town and really what people have in the bank that they're investing in this.
All right. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve, before we move on, I noticed we've got, well, I guess one of them's Paul Loeb. We've got an unidentified caller on here.
This is Renee down here.
I can't see where down here is. Is that the?
That's the phone call is Renee. She had to
0318,
pop
okay.
off for a
Yeah,
moment.
her name was on there originally. I didn't see it now. I didn't know if it was somebody new. Okay.
So Newtown offices and library status. We've touched on a chunk of this, but there's more stuff that we can discuss. I guess one thing to say is we have been through what they call the 50% budget. That's at the end of the design documents and as we're starting the construction documents. We looked at the cash flow already. Oh, actually, I have something before we get too far that I'd like to discuss with the select board, particularly, which is, and this happens in these kinds of projects. So we put out for the civil bid, this is, a civil bid is all the site work. That's my,
I feel like that.
my housemate's Volkswagen bus, and it just makes me feel great to hear a Volkswagen bus, but it's still kind of noisy. Let me see if I can bring this up so that we can see it. So we got 4 bids back. This is raw bids. They haven't really gone through and vetted that everybody signed up to do what they said they were going to do in terms of the bid that they put towards us. But the low bid was Vermont Roads and Fields. And I sort of said, when I knew that they were part of the bidding package, that I was like, oh, we've had some problems with Vermont Roads and Fields, chewing up Rotax Road a couple of years ago. And so I just wanted to get the board's opinion. They are the low bidder by some almost $20,000. And the contract would be written, you know, not to us, but to Naylor and Breen, and Naylor and Breen would oversee them. The question that I put before the board is, are you guys okay with Vermont Roads and Fields as a subcontractor on this project?
Steve, what's the amount
you weren't
budgeted
on the board.
on this?
So the skinny is, there's stuff I'm not really prepared to say on a recorded thing that's going to go public, but let's just say that Vermont Roads and Fields trucked in about 100 trucks, loads of fill. It's not clear. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know where he got them. I'm pretty sure that they weren't destined for where they ended up, to a private Moncton landowner, sort of during mud season.
Without any permits.
Without asking the road commissioner.
And then also never reimbursed us when we presented them with a bill for repairs.
I don't even remember if it was a bill for repairs, or I think we were after more than, we were basically after, hey, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again, and we never got that.
Okay. So actually my question wasn't that, but
okay.
My question was, what do we have budgeted for this portion?
Oh, so they had budgeted 132.
Ah, okay. So the next ones are all over
By
that.
quite a bit, and not
Yeah.
even within the sort of contingency bit. Now, I mean, these are raw numbers. Naylor and Breen goes through to make sure that they've really, that their bid is viable, and that they've responded to all of the things that were requested in the bid package.
I think my opinion is that in a construction standpoint, they probably may not understand. There may be some issues regarding the time of start and finish dates relative to weather and conditions. But whenever I look at bids in my business, I look at the high and low, throw them out, look at the middle, determine the quality of the individuals in those two categories, and then subject them to another sort of discussion as to why that the analyst who did the cost analysis, the NBB, which is at 132, asked him why there's a differential between the two of those.
Sure.
And that's the way I approach it. And I think if you can get a handle on it, it sometimes helps us figure out what we're not getting, what we're missing here.
Sure. I mean, Naylor and Breen, they're really good at this, as I'm sure you know. And
Yeah.
I know that they're talking directly to Vermont Roads and Fields and the Bishop, reviewing their bids. Munson's obviously out. I would have hoped that Parker would have given us a bid that we could, that would have finished in the running, because I would have loved to have Roger Parker Excavating do the work. But
But he's very busy right now doing the Quiniasca Estates. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
So
a
that's
huge
why.
project for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he's going to be up to his eyeballs for at least 6 months on that.
There you go. So anyway, the real question is, can I let Naylor and Breen continue to evaluate these civil bids, I guess, without interference from the select board?
This is just me, but I gotta say, I'm not a fan of sending any business Vermont Roads and Fields way
Yeah, me neither.
after how they handled that. And other than that, I would let somebody else a whole lot more qualified than me figure out what's the best value for the dollar. There's more to it than just the dollars, but what's
Yep.
the best value for the dollar?
Yeah. And I expressed my opinions several times to Naylor and Breen. So I said, you guys really need to qualify these guys if you're going to let them work on this project.
Well, they broke the law, and they broke the law in our town repeatedly, and didn't even apply for it.
And I'm not defending them, all right? I just told you throughout the high and lows. The thing is that these guys are not the only people working in this part of the state. And I don't know if we have all the bids that we need to do this. I mean, that's just 4 bids.
Well, they didn't just send out to those 4 bids. Those were the only 4 bids back that they got.
Well,
because there are 3 other excavators in town, at least one of which is large enough to handle this.
Right. And
Right.
he decided not to, he didn't respond to it. He decided not to put a bid together.
well, I think it requires Naylor and Breen to maybe reach out to them and say, "Are you sure you don't want to do this?"
Well,
I do that in my business. I have to sometimes reach out when I see numbers that don't correlate, and I'm looking at a large differential here, and every single line item you have to sort of take that time to go, hey, you know how to do this.
Yeah.
Why aren't you not bidding on this?
Well, from a legal standpoint, unless you're going to reopen the bids up and rebid the whole package, you can't sort of,
I understand that. I understand that. I do.
know the whole business.
Well, again, all right, whatever.
Okay.
I'm just saying that there's ways of Naylor and Breen can always go out there and say, we have to reopen this bid because this is not appropriate. This is a rather large differential between the estimate and the bids that we've received. And even Vermont Roads and Fields is above the estimate.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm just saying that maybe we should ask them if they're comfortable doing that again, if there's a time to do it. I don't know. But I don't know that I look at the others and say, they're substantially higher.
Okay.
This is just the beginning. We haven't even gotten through the other parts of the bidding process. We can't, my opinion is when you start at the base and you can't even get within 10% of it on the bid, on the estimate.
So this is not the first. We've already bid out the HVAC, the plumbing, and the electrical.
No, I understand that. I understand. I'm just throwing out a suggestion that.
Well, so Paul, I guess what I would do is I would invite you to listen in on the status meeting that we'll have tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, if you can make that. And I'm sure there's
9 tomorrow morning or 9 in the evening.
9 in the morning.
Okay. All right,
I think at this point, these numbers are public. If you're going to ask somebody else to bid on it, you got to give everybody the opportunity to read it too.
No, exactly. You have to put it out to a whole new bid.
And then the question is, are we going to do this with every big ticket item that comes up?
So this is anyway.
All right. Look, well, okay, that's fine. I don't have anything more to say.
Okay, fine.
Well, I think it's valuable if you want to tune in tomorrow. And
no, but John, it doesn't really matter if in fact the board feels that this is not something that is worth pursuing. I don't want to push that. I just giving you my explanation based on my own experience. That's all.
Well, but anyway.
So
you're welcome to join that call. And Mary Kate, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it seemed might make sense to join that call and for Naylor and Breen to make a decision about whether to put it out to bid again, in part because all the bids are over what the estimate was. And so, maybe not. I don't have the expertise, but Paul might be a good person from the select board to sit in on that.
Yep. I mean, I'm in on that, and Will Bound is on that, and then the architect and
I trust Will's judgment tremendously.
Yeah, he's a pretty smart guy.
No, he's very good.
Let's see. I also wanted to.
Were you looking for a motion?
Yes. What?
Were you looking for a motion on this, or just?
I'm not. I was trying to understand if you guys all said to me, no, Vermont Fields and Roads, throw them out. We're completely unwilling to work with them. I'd take that back to Naylor and Breen and say, no, we really can't do that. That's not what I've heard. I've heard that you share the same trepidation that I do.
Well, I'll tell you, I feel that way. I feel they ought to be thrown out. It wasn't just Moncton regs they broke when they pulled that crap.
Yep. It's AOT.
It was to fill inappropriately and illegally.
Yep, I agree. I gave that information to Naylor and Breen. All right. So this is something. This is one way to look at the budget so far, and I'm going to need to send this to Renee. This is sort of how everything breaks down in terms of costs, and it works out into a dollars per square foot number. We can go through it individually. It's not really that interesting. What I really bring it down for is these are some of the alternates that have been discussed, and where we ended up. They're broken down into alternates and what Naylor and Breen calls value engineering. Value engineering means they look at the project and say, well, you could probably save some money over here if you did this or this. So just very quickly, there was an alternate, how much is it costing us for that full basement underneath the town hall? And the answer is like $37,000. We like that. We think that that's a reasonable cost. Alternate number 2 was to get rid of the asphalt driveway and turn it into, SurePack. And we said, yeah, we'll do that. Save $16,000, $17,000 on the project. there's expanded parking and kind of gives us an idea of how much it would cost for expanded parking. We're not doing that. There's currently an external stair coming from the community room. I actually think that it's one of the things that we've added that's really quite useful to the project. And here it tells me that, well, adding that costs us $13,000. How much, alternate number 5, for instance, is, well, what if you went with asphalt shingles instead of standing seam roof? It's a $13,000 difference. And we thought that we're willing to pay that for the increased durability. Alternate number 6 is to have them do the concrete patio in the back. They would charge $36,000 to do that. This is something that we've sort of said that no, we think the town, either directly or through volunteer works, can create that, do the patio work. We got rid of the concrete curbs on the parking lot because it would save us $3 grand. We reduced some of the under slab insulation. We only have under slab insulation for 4 feet in from the edges. Some of this stuff gets a little, that saved us $7,000, but something.
Steve, would you prefer questions to wait till the end of this?
No, well, sure. What do you got?
I guess that the one I've heard so far that kind of disturbs me a little is the insulation under the slab.
Yeah. We've had long talks about it.
It just seems like whatever you're using that space for, if you're not insulated there, you start getting condensation on the concrete, and that limits what kinds of things you can store there if you're worried about moisture. Either that or you got a humidifier constantly, or
No, but not at 4. If they're talking about doing a 4 foot in from the exterior into the, and I don't disagree with that, because that is, as a matter of fact, the Canadian National Building Codes have the similar options in that if you look at the way temperatures work underground below the frost line, which is 48 inches in our region, it will not penetrate much more than 4 feet horizontally from the lowest point, and that would only be on the perimeter facing the lake, or the pond, excuse me, where that would be the most compromised. All right,
Okay.
so I agree with that.
that answers my question there then. Okay.
There you go. And then the value engineering was a kind, stuff that Naylor and Breen looked at our current design drawings and made suggestions, some of which I'd love to tell you about, but I don't really know very much, and I know Paul does, but that's fine. I have never seen nor used a 2.5-inch zip system, but I understand it's a way of external putting up insulation.
Right.
The big change that we did make here is that the architect had chosen boral siding, which is sort of the new siding, but it's actually quite expensive, and we have gone with the pre-finished Hardy siding. Hardy, the good news is the Hardy board is a little better than when I put it on my house, but I love it on my house.
Yeah, as long as it's above the drip line of your ground.
Yeah, it's well above.
I have Hardy on my house, and it failed 18 inches above the grade. But according to what I looked at the design, that's not a consideration here. So we're good with that.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to, and the one that I'm really going to, they more stuff. Value engineering number 12. Normally Naylor and Breen would take out a construction bond, a performance bond, that to ensure that they would complete the work. you know, we'd get a payout if they failed to complete the work. One of the things that we could do is instead of asking for a performance bond, that they would be willing to share their financial statements with us, so that we can make sure that Naylor and Breen was not going to go out of business during the course of our construction project.
Steve, I assume this, not having seen all the payment terms, there's still some kind of holdback, some percentage that's held back till everything's finalized and the checklist is done and somebody says, yes, we sign off.
Yeah, yes.
So there is, the town still does have some recourse if we get to the end of the project and say you didn't fulfill your end of the bargain.
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
it goes along. Yeah, we'll have.
But the bond is more about ability to pay than anything else.
Right. If they went out of business. I'm sorry, Paul.
No, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. You were
The
going to
bond is
explain it.
basically, if they went out of business, it's an insurance against them going out of business.
Yeah.
It is an insurance policy to make sure that somebody comes in behind them to finish the job according to the terms.
Yeah. So anyway, we could waive that. It would save us 12 grand. We made some of the interior use sort of standard interior windows instead of, you know, fancy glass like architects like to use. And the other big one was knocking $11,000 off by reducing the amount that we're carrying forward for the water system, which has been $20,000. All in all, you know, we shaved off $71,000. You know, but we needed to save that $71,000 to stay under budget. So, but that's, I just wanted to sort of bring that to the select board so you could kind of see how the process worked. What else did I have? I think that's all I have for the select board in terms of that project. We are continuing pace. We have the DRB hearings tomorrow for a conditional use. And then, you know, we have permits outstanding for the water system. We have permits outstanding. Given all the permits clear, and because the architect's been ahead of the game, we're sort of on track for a construction start of July 15th. The earlier we start, the less winter charges we end up. The sooner we can get it buttoned up and undercover, the more people can work inside and stop getting some of the winter charges. Emergency management director status, COVID. I don't have a bunch of stuff there except to tell you that we continue to be on a very nice glide path in terms of new cases and deaths. I think Governor Scott has done an awesome job in terms of making this work, and I have to tell you that one of my neighbors who rents out their house, they live in New Jersey, they came up for the Memorial Day weekend, and I was like, they didn't get it. They didn't get it. They didn't get why I was like, no, I'm not going to come within 6 feet of you. No, really, I'm not going to. If you're wearing a mask, I'll be within 6 feet of you. And no, I don't want you to pay me for the honey that I gave you for, you know, in cash. I'm just like, I was flabbergasted at the difference in attitude regarding the virus and stuff. So, anyway. Are there any questions there? Yeah. Old business, Jockey Lane, anything, John? You haven't heard from,
I called the town attorney on, it was either Wednesday or Thursday of last week, basically saying, asking what we had asked one for last meeting was, you know, given that we haven't turned up the official road survey, what are our next steps? How can we move forward to get something completed? He has not returned the call. So that, I mean, basically he had Thursday and Friday of business days and then, you know, didn't catch me then. So I'm assuming I won't hear from him till tomorrow at the earliest. But if I don't hear from him by the end of the day tomorrow, I'll call again. But, you know, really, I don't know what the next step is.
so, I mean, I would propose the next step is to, which I think is what we've discussed, is just have Tim mark out the town right away and have, a couple of select board members go walk the line and say, hey, this is where the town right away is.
Yeah, the problem is that without that original document, his marking of the town right away could be challenged.
I get it.
So he'd be basically saying best available evidence on the ground, you know, from visually inspecting plus having done surveys in the area. Here's where I think it is.
Yep.
It could be challenged, but is it going to be? I don't know. But yeah.
We need to take the step. We need to, find out where we're going.
I was at least hoping to hear something from the lawyer before we told him to go ahead and do that. But if we don't, the next step that I could see would be to just go ahead and do that and tell the landowner either fix it yourself or we'll bill you for it.
Well, that's where we get into rough times. But at least go in there and say, it looks to us like you're in the town right away, and that's really not just so.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
just for the minutes, is it Tim Short? Is that his last name?
Yeah, short surveying, Tim Short.
Thanks.
Okay. Salvage yards in Moncton, we're still stuck. Town 36 road reclassification. I guess we ought to do this.
Town 36 is
John Howard. We either do John Howard or we do the end of Pond Road. You make the call. We have to do the end of Pond Road.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, is there a reason not to do both?
I'd rather do them one at a time than do them sequentially, than do them both at the same time. But
okay, I didn't know if like legal warnings and things that have to be posted, you can post them all at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to visit either one of those locations if we want to designate a committee to visit or whatever.
Yep. What a hassle.
Yeah.
What a hassle. Town credit card policy. I really haven't had a chance to review that, Mary Kate, and it's just the way. And hey, Jamie, you still there? Jamie Schulte? No, he's not.
All good, Steve, we're using your credit card for now, so it's all good whenever you're ready.
Exactly. Speaking of which,
how can I help, sir?
Oh, welcome. Hello. I was going to, I was hoping to convince you to do two different pieces for me. I love your background.
Right.
So number one is, we've bumped up against each other a couple of times on Zoom meetings. Using the town thing.
Yes, apologies for that last week or last meeting.
It's not, the problem.
I thought I had tested that successfully, but apparently not.
Yeah, we only have one Zoom account.
Right.
And I think we should probably go get a second Zoom account, and then it's a question of how to schedule them. And I was hoping to ping you and say, hey, can you come up with a way to do that?
Yep.
Well, or not. I'm throwing out tasks and seeing if I can make any of them stick. And the other one is the one that we're currently considering, which is cloud storage.
Right.
You know, I sent around today a 6 megabyte file to 5 people, so it's like, it's huge. Where it would be much easier if we all had Dropbox and I could just drop it on there,
Yes, I agree.
or some other cloud storage. I'm open,
Right.
and I'm just looking for recommendations, really.
Sure. And my understanding was Mark Bolts Robinson was
Okay.
coming
So
up with a recommendation on that. But if not, or if you need my help, I'm happy to look at options.
well, how about if I ask you to talk to Mark and see if the two of you can
Yeah.
put heads together?
Yeah, we can certainly get that, to you for next meeting. I don't think it's that complicated, really.
I don't think it is either, but we just need to do it.
What's the action you're looking for regarding the second Zoom account? It seems like we would simply need to set that up and, get it funded in some way.
Well, I know how it gets funded.
Steve's credit card.
Right.
Steve's credit card.
Right.
Although I can expense it and that kind of works. Steve's credit card's great, but unlimited funds, as far as I can tell. They keep letting me charge it on it. The question is how to keep people from overlapping them.
Sure. Right. So I think it's just a matter of saying what committees. I mean, select board always has this meeting, this number. Certain other meetings that would never be scheduled on the same day would use the same number, right? And then, if there's a second meeting, typically it's been ANAC or Conservation Commission or something on the same night.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, would take the second number. I mean, as long as we schedule and book correctly and post the correct link on the agenda, it doesn't matter which one we use.
No, it's true.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I think maybe select board, DRB, and planning commission should all use the same. It should be Mondays. The second Mondays should always be planning commission for this account. DRB, blah blah blah. Then the second account can be used with the other committees that don't meet as often.
Yep. I absolutely that those would be the ones who would get the priority.
Sounds similar.
Just because with DRB anyway, this happens to you guys at select board too sometimes. You have to warn stuff ahead of time. So we need to know 15 days before at least that we have that account for that night and blah blah blah.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm confused. Is there a doubling up? I mean, I'm looking at the schedule for June here, with the exception of the 16th of June, where the library trustee meeting and the Moncton Planning Commission. Everybody has a unique day. Is there something else going on here that I'm missing as far as the duplication on Zoom account here?
Yeah. Well, oh, come on.
I'm just looking at the calendar here right now. I don't see any doubling up with the exception of the 16th of June. So I'm not sure if I must be missing something. That's all.
Maybe the Conservation Commission meetings aren't on the calendar?
No, I think everything's on the calendar, but the dates of some committees are not
I'm not
as
sure
regular.
the DRB ones are up there yet either because I was unsure of.
No, DRB is on here.
Are they? They're on. We're on for tomorrow, but are we on for June?
I'm looking at DRB right here for May 26th tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't have the June ones up there yet.
The conservation is not showing up at any point during June.
So in effect, Paul brings up an interesting point, which is that we could sort of say, unless there's some compelling reason, why would we let committees book on the same night? Is that what you're kind of getting at? It's only happened a few times. I mean,
it has happened.
We've stepped on each other.
Doesn't the Conservation Commission meet on either the second or fourth Monday?
We're not that precise.
Okay.
Typically, yes, but approximately monthly intervals for conservation and ANAC and other committees.
The conservation is not even listed here on June.
And if that's not workable, I'm happy to let somebody use my account.
Yeah.
I have a paid account.
That's what I've done. I've been using my personal account.
Yeah.
So like May 21st, ANAC and the town forest were both
right. And so the only issue is whoever books the meeting essentially has to log in and start it. You can't, book it for somebody else.
Yeah.
So either, I need Steve's login to his personal account or whatnot, right? If we don't have two Moncton accounts, or we have to enforce that no two meetings can happen on the same time slot.
Yeah, I don't think we can enforce that. There's just too much going on.
Okay.
But
two accounts should be plenty then.
yeah, 2 accounts is plenty.
Yeah.
It's just, it's $120. It's not a lot of money, but it's some money. Okay. Hey.
So,
Yes, Mary Kate?
yeah, so I just, while we were in the meeting, also looked up the tax statutes, and it looks like the interest and the penalties are voted by the voters.
Yep.
So I'm assuming that that new legislation, because I did read it, something, I just didn't look at it in detail. So I'll take a look at that before the next meeting, the new statute that just
The new
passed.
statute lets us change it, but the new statute expires January 1st, 2021. It's only good until the end of the year, so it's only
Okay.
so useful.
Yeah. And I think the 8% is the delinquent tax collectors, unless there's a fee, unless there's a salary established for the delinquent tax collector.
Well, so we have established a salary for the delinquent tax collector.
All right, so the 8% just comes to us then. All right.
Well, or we could take it off of there, but that's
right. But currently, that's how it works.
Yep. Okay. So,
okay,
other
thanks.
business to come before the board? Steve lost his temper. Oh well.
Sorry, I missed it.
Yes, all right. I had something for other business, but I can't recall at the moment. So the date of our next meeting? Bill, you're always good for that. But
June 8th.
June 8th.
June 8th. Okay.
How do I have June 8th, Wednesday?
No,
June 6th?
June 8th is on a Monday.
It's the second Monday.
Yes, it is.
Are you guys going to continue doing Zoom meetings, or are you
I'm
going to
looking
in person?
July.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Just curious.
June.
How does the board feel about it?
Not good.
Are you guys willing to meet in person? I'm kind of sketched out by it myself.
I'd be inclined to do at least one more this way and then see where we are as he's been starting to open things back up again.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, it seems like we've gotten so we're doing okay with these, but
Yeah.
It hasn't really impacted too much what we're able to do, although it does impact other people because they're showing up on the phone or on Zoom. But I don't know that I want to be in a meeting with a lot of people present either with the COVID-19. So
No, exactly. It's like, especially, well, yeah.
I don't think we can social distance in the town hall. For that would be one venue we cannot go to. We'd have to go to the fire station in order to maintain 6-foot distancing, even with amongst the members themselves.
Yep.
yeah,
That's you're talking 25 feet.
yeah.
Okay. So our next meeting will be via Zoom on the 8th of June, 7 o'clock. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Bill?
All right. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All right, opposed. So thank you. We are adjourned.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.